This video is brought to you by Sporlan, quality, integrity, and tradition. Alright, we got a Hoshizaki ice machine that is giving him a 3-beep error message. 1, 2, 3. So we got to reset that. The machine itself is pretty dirty too. Looks like it needs a good cleaning. Let's reset it and see if we can figure out why it's off on a 3-beep safety. So back in here is my reset button right up top. And we're just gonna watch the machine go through its normal process and see it make ice. So right here, it'll tell you that a 3-beep is a freeze timer, meaning it took too long to make ice. So freeze setting for 2 cycles in a row, so it took too long. So let's figure it out. This water pump certainly does not look good. So that's pretty suspect, but let's wait and see what happens. So right now it's just in the normal fill cycle. So it's filling until the water float gets to a certain level. Then it sends a signal to the board. Then the unit turns itself into a harvest. It starts every cycle in a harvest. And then it looks for a temperature reading from this thermistor. Once it hits that temperature reading and the float switch hits a certain level, then it knows that it's time to start the freeze cycle. So like I said, it'll start in harvest first. Okay, so we are in harvest mode now. So the hot gas valves are going to be opened up. There's my hot gas valve right here. I should say valves, I said plural, but it's one hot gas valve with 2 lines coming off of it. So then we should be feeding hot refrigerant into each side of the evaporator. It's actually split into 2 sections. This is one side, this is one side. You actually have 2 TXVs back here. So this side's getting hot, this side's getting hot, and then the thermistor, this orange wire right here, is on the outlet of one of these lines. So right here is not hot yet, and right here is not hot because these are the outlets. So the thermistor is mounted on one of those, and then that way it knows that when it gets to a certain temperature, or at least it assumes that when it gets to a certain temperature that it's hot enough that the evaporator should be completely clear of ice. That's not always the case if it's a severe freeze up. Good thing you should be doing on these machines is checking the grid, the plate, for plate separation. So these copper lines, when these evaporators go bad, will become loose. So when it's not in a freeze mode, just push on them. And trust me, when you find one that's loose, you'll know. Like, the whole thing will move. Yeah, all these plates look good, or the lines. Everything looks good on that. So I'm just going to wait for it to come out of harvest now and then see if the water pump starts up. So right out of harvest, this water pump should start up. All right, so it's come out of harvest. We've now got cold lines going into the evaporators, okay? So it finished its harvest cycle. The evaporators reached the right temperature. And it initiated the freeze cycle, but my water pump is not running, okay? So I have voltage going to my water pump, but the question is, why is it not running? Is it a bad water pump? It's a very good possibility, judging by the fact that the paint is all coming off of it, but we need to verify that by opening it, because sometimes there could be pieces of a broken cube guide stuck in there not allowing the pump to run. So we're gonna pull the pump out and have a look to make sure nothing's binding it up. I went ahead and tried to see if the pump would run in reverse, and it does not. So by flipping this guy, well, actually no, that wouldn't run in reverse now that I'm thinking about it, but regardless, I checked it in the wash mode to make sure the pump wouldn't run that way, and it wouldn't. So now I need to drain the sump. So we pull this standpipe out and just let the water drain. Gotta make sure we get that O-ring that's sitting there floating. So right now it's draining down into the bottom. Once we get all the water out, then we can pull the pump out and see if there's anything stuck in it. Got the pump out, and I can confirm that it is not bound up. When I push it with a screwdriver, it moves. It moves back and forth. So there's nothing binding up the pump. It's just clearly going to be a bad pump. So plus you can tell it's been overheating. The case is probably cracked. It's just beat down. So I'm going to go pick up a new water pump right now, and we will be back. All right, I've got a new pump here, and I've got this bracket that I had to take off the old one. Now I soaked it in ice machine cleaner down here and then scrubbed it down before I did so that way it was nice and clean and no more calcium in places where you can't get it. And then I took that same cleaner, what was left in here, and mixed it with water and cleaner, and poured it in here so that way it can dissolve some of this. And then I have my wire brush. We'll just take in here and kind of scrub to try to get some of the calcium from underneath the pump that you just can't get to. It's inevitable. There's always going to be some when these machines get old, you know, it's impossible to get it all, but do our best. Slowly putting the machine back together. Now, I'm going to be recommending some other parts, but we had to get the pump on and running. And also, too, I know people are going to ask why that pump says O2. That's from the factory, they write on that. And we actually, this wasn't, it's not a used pump, but it's a pump that was tucked back in our shop. And we actually just found it. So that's kind of nice. So I was able to pick that up. I've actually had it sitting there waiting for a pump to fail, but you can see it's the original Panasonic pump. These things last a lot longer than the new ones. I pulled the cover off and put some lube on the seal right here to make sure we have a good seal, so hopefully we don't have any leaks. I'm slowly just checking the machine out. I pulled the pump out check valve or pump out spring out just to make sure nothing was stuck in there. You can see there's tons of stuff in the machine. I'm going to do a quick cleaning right now, but we are going to have to come back and do a proper cleaning on this machine, but I'll be able to make it look a little bit better. Also went ahead and replaced the capacitor. I checked this one just for giggles and it was fine, but I got a new one back in here. So now we're going to fill this guy up with water and see if the pump works. So I got to turn the power back on first. All right, should be coming on. Board's powering up. Water inlet valve's running. Water's filling up the machine. So we got to let it go through its cycle. It's got to fill the whole thing up. We'll make sure the pump works. Then I'll put a little cleaner in there, cover up the ice, and do a quick cleaning on it. It's not my favorite thing to do, but in a pinch, put down a bunch of brand new clean trash bags and then a Lexan, catch anything that might come out, and then I'll run some ice machine cleaner through this guy real quick. And then when we're all done too, we'll do a hot water rinse and burn the top 6 inches of the entire bin of water to dilute anything, just to make sure nothing got through. Pump is running, doing what it's supposed to be doing. I have it in the wash cycle right here, so it's all the way to the right. And then we're going to tune the clean valve, and what that does is that forces the water pump water up through the water inlet and then out the water distribution rails. So now you're running through the main rails and then the water inlet rails too with the ice machine cleaner. And while that's happening, I'll do a wipe down with a damp towel and get the bulk of this stuff. And then when we're all done, I'll quickly pull the spray rails out and give them a quick rinse. And that'll be my quick cleaning for today. Now, a thorough cleaning would be taking everything out, probably running some bleach through the machine, getting all the way back in here, using a water hose, getting in the bin, all that good stuff, but that's a problem for another day. All right, it's circulated for about 10 minutes. I gave it a quick wipe down. It's still really dirty, but it's better than it was. Just draining out all the cleaner, and then we'll flush some water in there, get the sediment out of the bottom, and then we'll do a couple rinses, run some fresh water through, and then before we start making ice, we'll run sanitizer through it. Spray rails aren't the worst I've ever seen, but they're pretty bad, so I'm going to give these a cleaning real quick, and then we'll do sanitizer. All right, got some sanitizer running in there. That's why it's all foamed up in there. It's doing its job. I opened the cleaning valve again, and we're just letting it circulate. Like I said, I want to do a full teardown on this, but that's something we have to schedule, so they need ice. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, just getting it going, but it looks a lot better than it was. Still certainly could be cleaned more, and then we'll go ahead and replace these hoses when they do approve a cleaning. And we just went into harvest. The pump went into reverse to pump out all the bad, dirty, sediment-filled water out the bottom. So now the pump just shut off. Hot gas valves are energized, or valve, singular, feeding through these lines right now, which is teeing into this. Right here and right here. And so again, it's looking for water level and the thermistor to hit a certain temperature. So we get on here, you can see I'm capturing the ice. So I'm gonna put my hand here so I can capture the whole batch, and we'll throw all that out. So we're looking really good. Still a few stragglers falling, but those are really nice cubes. Nice and clear. Doing good. So I'm gonna let the rest fall down in there, and then when it goes back into freeze mode, we'll pull that out, pull the plastic bags out, and dump a bunch of water on there just to make sure nothing got on the ice. but we always throw the first batch away. Understanding how these ice machine works is so important, right? I'm very familiar with this particular brand, Hoshizaki. I'm very familiar with this particular model, so I'm really comfortable working on it, okay? But you guys got to see my troubleshooting steps and how I work through the process in diagnosing a bad pump, but always assume, you know, that I shouldn't say always assume, but just always double check, right? Just because it has voltage, just because it's not running, doesn't mean that it's bad. It could be that it's locked up. It could be that something's actually stuck inside the pump, not allowing it to run. And sometimes you can literally just free it up. These pumps on these machines are not cheap. In fact, they're stupid expensive, right? Ridiculously expensive. And so you always want to make sure, do the best for the customer, verify the capacitor is good, change the capacitor if necessary, and move on down the line. So once I changed the pump on this one, I was able to get the machine back up and running, saw it make ice, all was well. Did a quick cleaning on it. I definitely want to go back and do a thorough cleaning, but that's something the customer has to approve, and we need to schedule it because they got to empty out the entire bin. But I did my best with what I had, right? Protecting the ice, putting pans under there, cleaning the machine as best as possible, then rinsing it with sanitizer, then dumping hot water on the ice. And also, I should say, I removed the plastic Lexan pan and the plastic bags very, very carefully to make sure that nothing got into the ice. But then on top of that, just to be safe, I burned the top 6 inches of the ice with a bunch of pans of hot water just to make sure that we got anything out of that ice diluted down to the point that it's not going to hurt anybody, okay? So I just do my best with what we have, right? So it is what it is. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate you making it to the end of the video. If you haven't already, please consider checking out my website, hvacrvideos.com. We have merchandise available for purchase if you want to check it out. Also, if you want to help support the channel, go to truetechtools.com. Check and see if there's any tools you want to purchase. Use my offer code BIGPICTURE, one word. You can get an 8% discount on almost all their items on checkout, and I get a small commission when you do use that offer code. So it's a great way to help support the channel, and you get something potentially that you need, right? A new tool or something, okay? There's other methods to support the channel in the show notes: Patreon, PayPal, YouTube channel memberships. Those are all different ways to support the channel. Just check it out, okay? Thank you so very much. I really appreciate you, and we will catch you on the next one, okay?